Yo, what's going on, y'all? Today I'm going to be breaking down how to make crazy brass samples like WHEEZY, for the likes of like Gunna, Young Thug, Baby Keem, like whoever you want to make it for, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to be breaking it down without using super expensive plugins like Contact or like, I don't know, any of their super expensive horn plugins. And yeah, let's get straight into it. Here's a final sample. I mean, it's simple, but it's really fire. So the first thing I did was I opened up Expand, and this is the sauce. I mean, this is the main plugin. It's called Hard Trumpets and Brass, and it's right there. This is the main trumpet melody that I started off with, and really, when you're making these trumpet melodies, the main thing is bounce. You gotta get this part right, and you just gotta find two chords to stick on either side of that. So the first chord I have is just this. Oh, my bad. The first chord I have is just this E minor chord with like a little bit of a flourish. So it's E, B, E, G, and then a high G and a high B. So it's that part. And that just to add a little more body and to add the high notes. And then on the other side of it, I put this note right here. This chord is just basically a B minor 7th on the other end of the, you know, downward descending part. And how you make this, so really the timing for me, it was really simple. Just the 1, then you start this on the 3, and then you put this on the 5, then a little flourish right here, kind of like the 808 notes, that bounce. But yeah, really when you're making these, you just gotta figure out if you want it to be descending or ascending. So I wanted this to be descending, so that's the first thing I started off with. I just made this like little, here, I'll delete everything, I'm sorry. I made that, and then I complemented that with just another layer of notes that go underneath it. And that made it sound really like that's the melody that I wanted, but afterwards it still needs the body. It still needs like the bottom half of the chords. So I just added like a little bass line, not a bass line, but you know what I mean, just the bass notes of the chord, and then I just built the chords up. I kept the bodies pretty much the same. Oh, and then after that, what I did was I just got another chord, which this is just a D major. And I did it again with these two little notes. And I basically just copied this chord over and pasted it 2 times over here, but I just voiced it differently. So basically, both these chords, instead of going up from D, it's still a D major, but instead of going up from D, it's going up from A and then upwards, and this one, again, it's got more lower notes, and this one's got more higher notes, so it, again, it sort of ascends back into this. And after that, I just copied and pasted this same melody over here, but I just changed this descending part a little bit, so instead of having the melody that was over here, this just, the body's basically the same. I mean, again, the body doesn't matter that much as long as it's a body, but the top line is a little different and sounds more like this. So I just changed that top melody up to add variation, and that's it when it comes to the horns, really. But after that, I just added like a few flourish horns. So this other expand sound, hard tenor sax. That's what that sounds like, simple. Then there's BBC Symphony Orchestra, which I just added these staccato horns, as that sounds like. And then I just went back into expand, I cloned the sound, I turned the volume down, I added this little flourish, which is really simple. And all the horns together sound like this. But yeah, I mean, that's the horns. It's really simple. It's just a lot of layering because I couldn't find the perfect sound that would just make it sound proper. So I just layered a bunch of stuff together. And yeah, after that, it's just accent melodies, really. So I found this like piano pad and expand, and I just played these simple chords with it. Literally super simple chords. I mean, just basically the same chords over here. I just voiced it differently. Then I copied that same sound, or I copied the same MIDI, and I pasted it into these legato strings. Simple, it just adds a little bit of ambience to the background of the melody. And then afterwards, I found this lecture sound called the Custom Royalty Gate Loser, and I just copied the same MIDI over, except I added a little cut right here. And this is what that sounds like. But I didn't really like it that much, so I exported it and I reversed it. and then I just chopped it back up because when you reverse a chord pattern or when you reverse anything, it's going to reverse the chord structure, so I have to like reverse it to make it go back to the original chord structure, and that's what that sounded like alone. Again, it just adds ambience and it's a cool little melody to introduce at certain points and take out. So yeah, altogether, everything kind of sounded a little bit better now, but I felt like it was still missing a few more main melodies, so I went in and I went back into BBC Symphony Orchestra, and I found this violin, and I just put it on the pizzicato tab, I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And it's the same chords, but with just a little flourish over here that, you know, because that's like an empty portion of the horn melody. I want to fill that in with a different sound, and this is what it sounds like. Super simple, and altogether the melody is sounding like this right now. Afterwards, I just wanted to add a few more flourishes, so I went back into expand. I found this soft pad, or bright pad, and I just made a really simple melody which hits on the one and then it has its ascending pattern. Again, really simple, just a bit of a flourish, and then I went back into expand, found another lead or something, and I just made this simple chord pattern that just is kind of in the background. And the last sound, the last like melody I added was this like harp and celeste sound from BBC Symphony Orchestra. I love BBC Symphony Orchestra, by the way. It's a free VST, so I'll put the link to how to get that in the description because it's great. But it's just this like harp thing, and it's in the background. You can't really hear it, but I mean, I introduce it in certain parts of the beat, like when I'm not playing the horns. So this is what it sounds like. Really simple. Again, the whole melody is just basically the horns are the only hard part in making these brass melodies. Everything else is just stupid simple and in the background. And the final two things I added were these two textures. One of them's from a Capital Simon Torito drum kit, and one of them's from my own drum kit. This is what the textures sound like by themselves. So yeah, that's pretty much the loop, and on to the drums. So yeah, with the drums, I wanted to keep it pretty simple, but like bouncy, so like WHEEZY style drums, and I'll show you them first, and then I'll break it down after. So this is what they sound like. One thing to note before we start breaking down the drums is that I added two other sounds to the melody. One is just this bass, and that sounds like really simple. And I added this kitchen sample pack sound, the 15 water girl pad, and this is what that sounds like. So yeah, I just felt like I need to add a few more sounds to finish out the beat, or the sample. I also pitched the sample down by 2. But really, when it comes to drums, the first thing you want to start off with is your claps and snares, just to establish a simple rhythm. And this is the clap and snare pattern sounds like. It's just a simple clap hitting on the one, or on the whatever the regular clap pattern. And I split the snare pattern between like 3 different snares. So one snare as like the end of the phrase, another snare just hits every time right before the clap, and this last snare just layers on with the second clap, the 4th clap, the 6th clap, and the 8th clap. This is what that sounds like together. Because I know WHEEZY, like something that WHEEZY does a lot is that he splits his snare patterns between 2 different snare samples, and that gives it like an interesting bounce. After that, I wanted to add some open hats and some perks, so I just went in and found a few open hats. This is a BWB Wave open hat, which just hits at the first of every single, like it hits on the strong beats. Then there's this other open hat that hits with some of the claps. And then there's this, and then there's other open hats. There's one more open hat that hits just on the 5 and every 5. And all the open hats together sound pretty bouncy, and it makes it sound cool. Afterwards, you gotta add some perks to get the bounce right, so I added this perk that hits on the 1. And then maybe my favorite sound in the entire beat is this perk. I don't know where I found this, but I found this perk, and I think I put it into Edison and fixed it up a little bit. And it sounds like some sword thing. This is what it sounds like. Sounds like some sword sound. I don't know. It just sounds really cool. And this is what that sounds like. It's in the background, but I think it really sounds cool. Afterwards, really, you gotta get the bounce right. So you gotta add the hi-hats. And the hi-hats, I don't know, the thing with WHEEZY hi-hats is make them two-step and then add these fast rolls. So these are, I think, quarter note rolls, or fourth step rolls. Just add these fast rolls, add a few descending rolls, and then add a few high, slower rolls, because it sounds really bouncy. And this is the hi-hat pattern sounds like by itself. I want to keep it like really simple and not go too crazy, because I like the space in the beat. But I just added a few fast rolls, a few high rolls, and kept it really simple. And after that, really, it's just the 808. The 808, it's super simple. It's literally just following the bass line for the most part. It's not even following the bass line. It's just really simple, but you gotta make sure it's hard. This is what the 808 sounds like by itself. To get that hard 808 sound without like raising the velocity, you gotta boost your 808s. So I already have pre-boosted 808s in my drum kits. But to get that, I think one of the other 808s I used, yeah, this one, it's boosted. Like from the normalized state, just boosted about 15%. And that'll give you that super hard vibe. Altogether, the drums just really come together. This is the drum sound like together. Last few things I added were for the verses, I changed up the sample for the 808. So for the first half of the verses, I have this 808. And for the second half, I have this 808. This is what that sounds like in transition from each other. But yeah, I mean, that's the final beat. I didn't arrange it, but that's really all you gotta do with the drums for these WHEEZY beats. Is just it's trial and error. You gotta figure out the right bounce and the right time, but make sure it's not too busy, because otherwise it's never gonna sound bouncy. Hope y'all learned something and hope y'all enjoyed, and peace out. Till next time.